So hello everyone, I'm Christos Andreev and I want to welcome you to this webinar by the Cyprus University of Technology for the project Balkan Med Innova. I want to thank the project Balkan Med Innova for giving me the opportunity to present this webinar. The topic of this webinar is a business model canvas. And the reason we picked this specific subject is because of the application for the Balkan Med Innova. It requires for the participants to create business model canvas for their ideas. And we thought that it's a good idea to, first of all, address a business model canvas theoretically. And second, to present a case study to show people how exactly the business model canvas works in cases that are well known in well-known companies. So basically, this webinar consists of two parts. The first part is a theoretical part. We will discuss the theory behind the business model canvas and why it is so important for startups and why it is so well known and used in the startup community. And then we're going to discuss and we're going to examine the case of Uber in order to see how business model canvas works in practice. If anybody has any question or anything that wants to ask, he can either type on the chat or speak. I will present first the theoretical part and I will leave few minutes for discussion, for Q&A, and then we will move to the second part, which is basically the case study of Uber. And then afterwards, we can discuss the case study, or we can have a Q&A at the end for addressing whatever issues you want to discuss, or whatever you want to share with us. So I am Christos Andreev, and I am your presenter for today. I'm MSc Entrepreneurship and Small to Medium Enterprises Management graduate from the Cyprus University of Technology, and I've been involved in the startup community by going to hackathons, by having a startup with some friends, by participating in incubators and accelerators and various other events. And I've seen that business model canvas is the most used framework by far in the startup community. And why? The reason behind it is because it is an easy and flexible framework that can really get an idea and turn it into a business plan in just one page. So this is why it is so important, because it's convenient and it's straight to the point. Let's see what is a startup in order to define our terms. According to Eric Ries, startup is a human institution designed to create a new product or service under extreme uncertainty. So startups are uncertain. The only thing that's certain about them is that they're uncertainty, and you never know what actually will work on the market, because startups are based on assumptions. Startups use innovation as their tool. Innovation is really important for startups because it's a specific tool that entrepreneurs use in order to exploit change and find business opportunities in order to create business services or products. That's according to Peter Drucker. So let's now address one really romantic question, which is why someone would choose entrepreneurship instead of 9 to 5. It's because by choosing entrepreneurship, you can do what you love in many cases. If you're passionate about something and you can turn that into a business and you start doing what you love and get paid for it, this is really the right thing to do for anyone. And everyone can turn his passion into a business if he is able to find the right audience that will pay for it, and the right business model, of course. So let's now see what is the business model. Alexander Osterwalder and Pig Noor are the originators of the business model Canvas framework, and basically they they created the business model Canvas framework into a 2013 paper, which was published and widely distributed into the community, and that's why it became so famous. And then at 2015 it turned into a book which is called The Business Model Generations, which goes deep into the business model Canvas and includes many case studies and the different kinds of business models that companies can have. So basically, business model describes the rationale or the relationship of how the organization creates value, delivers value, and captures value. And this is a business model canvas. It's a one-page canvas which has 9 elements that can draw the overall picture of a business model. It's really flexible. You can change it really fast, and it's great for presenting it to pitching events, to investors, etc. These people, as you can imagine, are really busy and they don't have time to waste. So basically, the business model canvas is really good framework to that you can map your business idea and create the business model through it. So in the red squares, you can see that these are the squares that address the value creation or how a company creates value. With the green color, you can see that this is the way that that addresses value distribution, or how the company distributes value to the customer segments. And with the blue, the value collection, which are the elements that address the specifics, which has to do with cost and revenue. So let's take the first segment, which is customer segment, the first element of the canvas, which basically is the different groups of people or organizations an enterprise aim to reach and serve. Of people, if our business is B2B, if it is B2C or business to consumer, and it can be business if our business is business to business. It can be both, it can be business to government. It depends. The customer segments are really important first step, because we have to define our segments, who we are targeting. We cannot say that our product is a mass market product. Well, if you are selling chips, for example, or pizza, you can say that, but for most services and products, that's impossible. And you have to define your customer segments, because they will really affect your marketing expenditure, your sales expenditure, and everything else. And also, by knowing your customer, you can design the value for them. You can better learn the insights and what are their problems, what are they looking for, and therefore to develop your product or services according to their needs. So moving to the next element, which is the value proposition. Basically, the value proposition as defined in the textbook is a bundle of products and services that create specific value for specific customer segments. That's why we first need to define our customer segments for our offering. So we can see the value, we can see what is it that we are doing better than our competitors or the substitutes of the products or services that are in our market. The value proposition is really important because it's mostly what's going to differentiate us from other companies doing similar services or products. And it's what customers are looking for, is what we give to our customers in order to get something back. So moving towards the left, we have the key activities, which are the most important things a company must do to make its business model work. That these can be any activities that the company does in any department of the company, which are key to operating and key to producing value, key for the business model in order to work. And then under that, we have the key resources, which are the most important assets required to make a business model work. The key resources are really important as well as the key activities, since they underline what we need to make the business model work actually. We will see examples of key activities and key resources in the case study. So I don't have to provide you here. I don't think we have to provide any examples here of them. So let's move towards the left. And the last element of the value creation is key partners. That's the network of suppliers and partners that make the business model work. Or basically, all the outsourced services, outsourced people, or all the partners that we form partnership with that help and make the business model feasible and workable. So these are the elements of the value creation. By changing these elements, any aspect of them, we change how we create value to the customers. And because it's a value creation towards the customers, we always start with the customer segments in mind when addressing the business model canvas. So now let's move to the value distribution, which consists of two elements in the green color, the customer relationship and the channels. The customer relationships are the types of relationships a company establishes with specific segments. So what kind of relationship the company wants to establish? Is it a partnership? Is it a community? These relationships have to do with your segments again and with the value that you want to propose. And then underneath that, we have the channels, which are how the company communicates to reach its customer segments. And these channels also serve for customer relationships, because our customer relationships are also built through the channels. These are the communication channels that we use to address our customers and to distribute our value through. So these are the two elements of the value distribution. And now let's move to the value collection. The value collection consists of two elements. It's the revenue streams and the cost structure. The revenue streams have to do with the value, might be mainly cash, a company generates from each customer segment. I put the cash I like that because sometimes it's not only about cash if you have an NGO, but in most cases it's money we are talking about, the revenue streams, are the ways in which your company makes money from the different customer segments. As for the cost structure addresses all the costs that are incurred to operate the business model. That means all the money that we need in order for the business model to work, addressing external experts, key partners, the money that we need for production, the money that we need for operation, any other fixed or variable costs. So this is the business model canvas so far. It's really easy and simple framework. And in order to see it even more, most people present the business model canvas as 9 separate elements which have no any specific relationship between them. 9 blocks that are not related, and this is mistaken and shallow, because if you see the textbook, the business model generation by Osterwalder and Pigneur, you would realize that the business model canvas is distributed into these 3 things: the value creation, the value distribution, and the value collection. And this is also how you bind it with the definition of the business model that Osterwalder and Pigneur give. The definition of the business model, which says that business model is how the company creates value, distributes value, and collects value. In order to minimize even more the business model canvas, we can do the following. We can split the business model canvas into 2 parts in order to optimize it. The right canvas addresses value. The left canvas addresses efficiency of the business model. So when you change things on the right side of the canvas, which includes the value proposition, customer relationship, channels, segments, and revenue streams, we basically pretty much increase the value we provide to our customers. We make more targeted segments so we can see better what our customer needs, and accordingly we increase our value proposition and adjust it according to the customer segments. Or we find a better communication channel and we can communicate better with our customer segments, or we find better customer relationship that we want to create and we work towards that. Or we find a new way to price, a new revenue stream. We create a new service. We change the way we price things. So this is how we increase value for the customers. On the other hand, on the left side of the canvas, which underlines efficiency, we have the key partners, key activities, key resources, value proposition, of course, which is split in the middle, and the cost structure. So whatever we change into these quadrants here, we basically increase the efficiency of the business model. For example, we get a new partner which can provide us a specific service for 30% less money. That immediately optimizes our expenditure. So you see, this is efficiency. Or we find a new activity, a new way of distributing or creating our service or manufacturing efficiency, etc. We increase the efficiency, therefore. Or we find new resources, some new kind of resource that help our company to produce more value for the company, for the customers. Therefore, or we find some way to pretty much do our service faster, and this produces more efficiency. Or we find some way to cut down costs, and therefore we increase efficiency. So all these things have to do with the business model evaluation, which is what we're going to address next. So the business model canvas is a really useful framework because it pretty much ensures that you can change things very fast. You can change things really, really easy into the canvas. It's not like having a written 60, 70, 80 pages business plan and you have to go through it and you put it on the drawer and never take it out. With the canvas, this is not the case. According to Eric Rice, who's the author of The Lean Startup, which is one book I really, really recommend to anyone interested, is a build, measure, and learn loop. So basically, we create our first business model canvas. We are proud. Okay, great. We have now our canvas. So let's test it. We have our idea. We build our business model. And based on this business model, we create our product or service. And then we start measuring the results. And through measuring the results, either from sales, from surveys, or whatever, we generate data and from the customer segments. And we learn things from these customer segments and from our data. And then the things that we learned are turning into new ideas. So it's an endless loop for optimizing our business idea, to rebuild all the time our business model canvas based on data that we get through evaluation. So one thing that James Collins says is to be first. We often hear this, that you have to be first, you have to get through, in order to be successful, you have to get to a specific market first. So he says, be there first, be there fast, build market share, no matter how expensive, and you will win. Yell the entrepreneurs. Well, this is really important, but is not everything, as there are many cases in which it's not the company that came first that dominated the market, or even if they were first, they ended up getting disrupted. Because it's not only to do things differently, it's also that you have to do things better, as Elon Musk says. So mainly it's important to be first, but it's more important to be innovative and to provide more value. Value is the key. And one thing that you never know in the startups, as discussed previously, startups are very unpredictable, and the only predictable thing about them is their unpredictability. You never know what's going to happen. You have to learn by experience. So this is the end of the theoretical part of this webinar. If anyone has any question regarding what we just said, let me know and we can discuss it. We can have a chat. You can type on the chat, or if you want, you can open your microphone if you joined with a microphone, and you can ask anything you want. If you want to discuss about the theory behind business model canvas. I see that several people are typing, so let's see. Okay, Maxime, thank you for addressing this. The examples is what we are going to discuss into the second part of the webinar, which is basically we are going to take the case study of Uber, and we are going to see how Uber's business model underlies with the business model canvas framework. And then we are going to have Q&A in order to see if we have any other things that we want to discuss. Thank you, Maxim. Thank you for asking. As I see, Michalis Evstathiou is typing. Maybe Michalis is typing a long question. So I would like to address until someone else asks something, to remind you that that the business model canvas is one of the go-to frameworks for pitching. Also, it is very widely used, and many extensions of it are made. It's the basis because you can really play with it and change things up. And it's very simple, and it's what you have to do in order to submit for the BalkanMed Innova business idea competitions. And I hope that this presentation will really help you understand if you have any things that are not so clear, or to clarify some things behind it. So, Michalis, thanks for the presentation. It was very useful. At what stage do you think is better for an entrepreneur to create his or her business canvas? I missed a bit from the beginning, so you might already answered it. So, Michalis, really good question. The very first business model canvas, in my experience, from what I've observed through theory and through practice, is that when you have a business idea and you write your concepts down of the idea, then you can proceed with the business model canvas. You don't have to delay it any further than that. When you come up with the idea, just write the idea down and start working on the canvas. It's really helpful if you're a paper kind of guy to print out business model canvases in a white sheet of paper and have them with you. And when the idea comes, you just went out and fill the canvas. Something that I've seen a lot of people do is to basically pretty much try to make perfect business model canvas. But this is not the case, because you don't have to create perfect business model canvas. It's not the canvas that's important, it's the evaluation of the canvas that's important. Basically, the loop that I addressed by Eric Rice, the build, measure, and learn loop, that's why the canvas is so useful. So yeah, I would say when you come with the idea and you just write it on one paragraph, for example, and then start working on the canvas. It's really helpful. Like, you can have canvases printed at home, and and as you shower, you come up with some crazy idea for some amazing innovative service, and you want to quickly write this idea down. You go and you type the idea down fast because it's very easy to forget the idea, and then you start working on the canvas. By working on the canvas, even from your first draft, you're going to realize that some things that you might thought of are not there yet. For example, something that you thought it's going to be a bomb product or a bomb service, something that's going to be really useful, might be really hard to be monetized. So by pretty much examining the different quadrants of the business model canvas, you will be able to identify basically your revenue model and everything. And you might think that something it's a good idea for business to business, but then you realize that businesses are not interested in that, and you can turn it into a consumer product or even into a government product, business to government. So basically, to conclude to your question, at the beginning of when you have the idea, you create the canvas as well. This is really good practice, and through this you also learn better the framework by doing it. Afterwards, it's just like typing something on your phone. It's really easy to learn the business model canvas, and that's why it's so important. You go from idea to business model into one page. That's why it's so useful. I hope it answers your question, Michalis. If anyone else has any other questions, or Michalis at this point of the presentation, we can discuss them. Otherwise, yeah, I do have some experience both in theory and in practice with the business model canvas. We had many university projects for the master, and also in some competitions, and also in a startup environment. So great. I think that there are no any other questions. So let's proceed with part 2, which is the case study, the part 2 of this webinar. And we are going to examine Uber as a case study. I think most of you know what Uber is. The reason I decided to pick Uber is because Uber did really well. It's one of the unicorn startups that came up lately, and it's really nice that you can see the scalability of the business model in this case. And this is what I wanted to show you, how basically you apply the same concept into different areas, and you integrate vertically and horizontally in different cases. So basically, Uber is a great case to examine as a case study. I don't know who knows Uber or who doesn't know. Maybe it's a better question. Uber. I'm going to introduce you to Uber. So basically, Uber. The big blue button is messing up my presentation. But anyway, the Uber is a service that connects customers with the drivers. It's a mobile application. Basically, it's a service based. Uber is a cab service, cab application or taxi application, let's say, but it doesn't own any taxis. It's just a platform that connects the customers to the drivers, some of them professionals, some of them not. Uber works in the following way. It's really easy and convenient. The customer just sets or picks up a location, or they can use location identification through GPS, and they request a specific service. They can call for a taxi, UberX, black car, or SUV, which are some of the different options that you have on Uber. I will show you all of them later, maybe on the next slide. Then a driver accepts this route, and they accept this ride, and they go and pick the customer. Then the customer, after finishing the ride, pays automatically through the Uber application. So there are no transactions involved with cash or any other difficult to use systems. So the payments are also automated. And also the users or customers have the ability to split the bill. For example, if two people are standing on the same neighborhood and they requested both Uber, they can choose to accept splitting the bill with someone else, and the Uber driver will take both the customers, and the application will help them split the bill automatically. It's a very convenient platform. That's why it's so popular. Now, for next, let's see which services Uber provides. They have UberX, which are basically the low-cost Uber cars, such as Toyota Prius, etc. We have Uber Taxi, which basically is a professional taxi driver, which are registered into the Uber platform, and they are able to run through Uber as any other driver does. We have Uber Black, which is basically only black cars in between the regular and the luxury category. And we have Uber XL, which is for large groups. We're talking about big cars for 5 people and above. We have Uber SUV, which is a bit more expensive service, and Uber Lux if you want to go to your destination on a Mercedes or some other kind of luxury car. So let's see the company size and company valuation of Uber. When Uber released the initial public offering, the valuation was about 80 billion, but then it dropped, and that's because of some factors that we're going to examine on the next slide. But the current company valuation is about 47 to 48 billion dollars US, and but that's not only that's the whole Uber company, which includes some other things as well, not only the service for taxi riding. The Uber has over 110 million users worldwide. It operates in 785 cities worldwide. It employs over 27,000 people, and it has a market share of 67% for ride sharing and 24% for food delivery, which is really large market share, especially that one, the market share for ride sharing. It's really big number there. So now let's see our business model canvas into work. This is a business model canvas of Uber. Let's start with the customer segments, as we did before. We have 2 segments basically. We have the customers or users and the drivers or employees. The customers or users are people that do not own cars, or people that don't want to drive. For example, you went to the bar on a Saturday night and you're really drunk, you had about 3-4 whiskeys, and you really cannot drive. So you just request an Uber, or any other situations like that. For business people, as you saw before, Uber has some luxury car services or SUV services. Mainly tech-savvy people, people that love using technology instead of waving their hands or calling on the phone some cab company and having to deal with customer service with a physical person. Some people don't like that. And also urban low to middle class. Uber is cheaper than taxis in many cases. It depends, of course, on the service chosen. So these are the users or customers. And then we have the drivers or employees, which are considered to be inside the customer segments. Uh, they are also partners, but when we see them from the customer segments perspective, we see them before because they have their own cars, so they must have compatible. They must be compatible car owners in need of extra income to love driving, and some of them might be even professional drivers. The reason drivers or employees, do not get confused why drivers or employees are into the customer segments, is because the company of Uber provides value to them as well as to the customer segments. But you will see that they're also included into the key partners. So basically, the value proposition, we move now. As we can see, for the customers or users, is less waiting time, because in most cases the way Uber works, it's that it has drivers on the standby, which are getting paid for being standby, and they can easily come to the place they're requested to come. Lower prices in many cases, automatic payment system, which is really important because I don't know if you had any bad experiences with taxi drivers before, but um, many times they try to scam you, especially if you're a tourist. Then you have the tracking, which is really important. You can see exactly how many kilometers the taxi driver did, and you can really see that it's transparent system. It's not that the cab driver can cheat on you. We have also price sharing, which is really important, and a variety of vehicle options through one specific service. You don't have to call luxury service if you want to go on a Mercedes. You just have to use your application that you otherwise would have used. As for the drivers, the value for them is the extra income as main or extra, flexible working hours, easy payment through the platform, and they get paid, as I mentioned before, they get paid only for being online. You can be on a standby and you still receive some income, which is really really good thing. Then let's move to the key activities Uber does. They do production and development of their services. They do recruitment, um, background checks of drivers, etc. They do a lot of marketing activities. It's a highly competitive market. They do, and the most important probably is the platform and tech development and R&D, which is basically the maintenance, the support, and the development of their platforms so they can work efficiently. The key resources that Uber has is their platforms, applications for Android and iOS, the backend of their platforms, their servers. The network of drivers is considered to be a key resource in the case of Uber. The variety of cars also that they don't own but have access to through the network of drivers, it's really important resource. But do not confuse this, it's not they do not own cars. They have some projects now running for automated cars, self-driving cars, but this is not included into this. And they have plenty of capital, of course. Uber raised over $25 to $26 billion from investors, so they have plenty of capital to play with. Key resources, key partners, it's drivers with their cars. They're into the customer segments and to the partner, because without them it's impossible. The passenger transport services, many transport services are basically combining forces with Uber in order to make it extra revenue and not to add extra revenue source. Payment services providers, they collaborate with MasterCard and Visa. Before they used to collaborate with PayPal, but now not. That's not the case anymore. Digital map providers such as Google, Michelin Maps, Here Maps, S3 Maps, Garmin Maps, you name it. So this is the value creation of Uber. Now for the value distribution, let's go to examine the customer relationships. It's the customer relationship wants to build with its customer is trust as a reliable and convenient passenger carrier, and the relationship it wants to establish with the drivers, it's a flexible and trustworthy employer by providing flexible working hours, etc. As for the channels, Uber's webpage is the main channel for drivers and employees to get recruited. The application, Android and iOS, is for both the customers and the employees. The social networks are mainly for the customers to engage with. They have also online advertising and offline advertising. Offline advertising, it's mainly billboards into busy streets, and the job listings, which are channels online for drivers or employees. And now moving towards the value collection, we have the cost structure or the expenses of the business model of Uber. We have the technological infrastructure costs, all the costs that are needed for the technology to work, the technology behind Uber. We have payroll for all the personnel. We have marketing costs, the outsourced services payment, such as digital maps provider or payment services. And of course, we have the R&D costs, which Uber is really engaged in R&D because it wants to innovate. It's one of these companies that innovate. So moving towards the other end of the spectrum, how Uber makes money or their revenue streams. We have payment based on time, distance, and demand, which they name surge pricing, which takes into account the time, the availability, and how busy the network is at the current moment, so it can adjust the price accordingly. And we have vehicle-based pricing, which also takes into account which kind of vehicle service you're using. If it's UberX or if it's UberLux, it's going to be definitely different. And of course, we have to keep in mind that the percentage Uber takes from each fare is around 25%. That's from the driver's cut. So these are the elements of the Uber's business model canvas. Let's see why I chose Uber. It was the scaling efficiency. So according to Peter Thiel in his book 0 to 1, the most successful companies make the core progression to first dominate a specific niche. For those of you who don't know what niche means, it's a specific customer segment, specific segment that's targeted, and then scale to adjacent markets. This is exactly what Uber has done over the years. And you can see exactly what they did is they had the cab service with this specific business model, and then Uber created Uber Eats, which is a service for delivery, for food delivery, especially important. This service is especially important now during the COVID-19 outbreak. They have the Uber Health, which is a network of health professionals that work through a platform, and you can book them through the platform. That's Uber for Business, which is a variety of services that are available to businesses through a similar platform. There is Jump by Uber, which is basically the bike sharing service. Uber Freight is a delivery service for freight, for carrying for carrying heavy items, etc. And Uber Elevate is a service that has to do with elevation, and by elevation I mean helicopters, drones, even private jets can be found through Uber Elevate services. So that's it for Uber. I also wanted to present you some challenges and risks that the specific market and business model of Uber has. The market is highly competitive. It has low cost of copying. I'm sure that you've seen many local alternatives to Uber into your market, such as Lyft and many others. Taxify in Greece, I believe, Bolt in Cyprus, and I don't know how many others I've seen this kind of services in any country I've visited. We have legislation issues because Uber allows for non-professional drivers to become cab drivers, and this is not allowed in some countries. And there is no clear differentiation between each company into this market. It's hard to identify competitive advantage. So now the risks of this business model and the challenges is that there are complex security issues into the system. Someone might hack the GPS, and through this they can manipulate the price, which is one issue that has to be addressed really, really well. It's passenger safety, of course. The companies have to perform really good background checks on the drivers to ensure that they are okay in order to take these things into account. And the privacy, of course. You literally have the data of where the customers went and where did he go, of customer routes, which is really detailed and important data. And has to be protected strictly, and it's difficult to define the competitive advantage into this business model, as I mentioned previously also. So this was for Uber. These are some recommended books that I want to leave you with. The Business Model Generation, which is the main book that if you want to learn everything about the business. By the way, the business model of Uber is called the multi-sided platform because it's connecting one segment with one other segment. The $100 Startup by Chris Guillebeau, The Lean Startup by Eric Rice, The 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, The Good to Great by James Collins, Innovation and Entrepreneurship by Peter Drucker, The Upstarts by Brad Stone, The Startup Way, again by Eric Rice. And we also have the Elon Musk biography by Ashley Vance, Shortcut Your Startup by Courtney Carter and Carter Realm, The Power of Broke by Damon John, and Crushing It by Gary Vaynerchuk. You can also follow these websites, which have plenty of free resources for startups. The entrepreneur.com, startupacademy.org, and Startup School, of course. And you can watch some of these TED Talks in order to see how to get ideas to spread by Seth Godin, how to do what you love by Gary Vee, the single biggest reason why startups succeed by Bill Gross, and how to pitch to a VC, which you might be interested in. So that's it for the second part. Let's have a discussion now. We have about 5-6 minutes left. Let me know anything you want to discuss. In either type it or open your microphone and say it. Yeah, that's a quote by Gary Vee. That's a nice one. Yeah, I didn't include a lot of any Gary Vee into this webinar. I will on the next one, which will be on digital marketing for startups. So as I see, Yanis is typing. Thank you, Yanis. Thank you for attending the webinar. Hope it was helpful for you. So Maxim is typing. Thank you. Maxim, if you want to ask anything in specific, you can send me an email or we can discuss. Why so big list of books? These are some of the basic books that I came up with, and these are some of the books that I used for creating this presentation, basically. If you ask for the most important ones that might help you, I would say the Business Model Generations, which is the first one, the 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, and the Lean Startup by Eric Ries are really solid books. This one is a little bit bigger, the Lean Startup, but 0 to 1 is really quick read. You can read it in 2 days or so. And Business Model Generation as well is a quick read. It's full of schemes, and it's a relatively small book. Thank you, Petros, for my prediction for Uber during the COVID-19 period. So basically, it's mixed. They will benefit from services like food delivery. As I see, the stock of Uber dropped since COVID-19 outbreak, as you can see here into these slides. But this is for 1 day period. I didn't put any longer charts here because I wanted to get the current valuation of the company. But yeah, some of the services will go up definitely, such as the Uber Eats, but many others will go down, of course. Especially, for example, Uber Elevate or maybe Uber Health as well. But they will, for example, Uber Health will be really important, especially after the outbreak, or if they come up with some way of including request for tests, for COVID-19 tests, this will be really, really interesting. Michalis is typing. We have to, thank you, Petros. We have to wrap this up because we are on the 60-minute mark. So let's see one last question by Michalis. Uber might gain more traction due to a private way of move around instead of public transport. Point, not a question. Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. So yeah, thank you, Michalis. Thank you everyone for attending.